found the naked body of a very young girl.
She had been gagged and tied.
There were marks on the body.
It seemed a perverted type of sexual crime.
His hope was to go back and see his handiwork.
Our database had over 20,000 people.
We were working 14, 16, 18 hours a day.
We were always concerned this offender would strike again.
Plymouth, Devon. An abandoned nursery holds a deadly secret. Soon, the rundown building is a crime scene. John Essery is the most senior detective in the area. He is immediately put in charge of the investigation.
We found the naked body of what appeared to be a very young girl. We thought she might have even been as young as 14 years of age.
Dave Green is a scenes of crime officer for the Plymouth Police Department.
There was a blanket lying on the floor. The victim was partially on and partially off the blanket. The hands had been bound. A gag had been placed firmly into her mouth. There was also material around her neck.
The ligatures, the hands behind the back, the display of the body gave us an indication that we were looking for somebody that might be sexually disturbed.
The body had a couple of slashes on her left breast. There was also some sort of cut in between the breasts.
Detective Elaine Marshall is second in command.
Starting to think that she'd clearly gone there not as a compliant person, but as a person that had been forced into the premises.
I decided that our priority was the shoe prints, which we believed had been left by the offender or offenders.
It clearly had been used as a kind of area for young people and maybe even drug addicts to collect and associate at different times of day and night.
The killer may also have left a message for whoever found her body.
The focus is so much on capturing whoever committed this terrible crime that you soon forget the emotions to bring somebody to justice. We had absolutely no idea who she was. There was no form of identification on her. She wasn't wearing any clothes. There was no clothes left nearby.
Desperate to identify the young woman, police take her body to the Plymouth morgue.
She was quite a petite girl. Try and treat her with respect when you're even putting her into a body bag. It's not just a piece of meat. You've got to remember it. This is a human being.
In Plymouth, the type of crime that we see is very rarely murder.
It seemed the perverted type of sexual crime. It was essential that we had a full-scale investigation with as big a team as we could afford.
Most murders are solved in the first 2 days, but early on, the investigation is going nowhere. Police have no suspects and don't even know who their victim is. But a new clue is about to give them a vital breakthrough.
Right, so, Judy, I'd like to make a few changes to your persona.
Yeah.
I need you to be less volatile.
What are you, nuts?
Okay, more mellow? Look, I'm just trying to put my own stamp on this show.
That would be your problem.
Maybe try being more sympathetic?
Don't make it up as you're going on. Make it so I can believe it.
Okay, have it your way. I just really felt that...
I don't care what you felt at all.
Why mess with perfection? A Judge Judy triple bill. Monday to Friday, CBS Reality. The power of science.
Fingerprint everything first.
We know it's blood. Use that sample for DNA purposes.
One of the more surprising results that I have seen.
Incredible techniques behind solving crime.
It's amazing.
Recovered DNA from a bite mark on the neck.
We carried out luminol testing.
All revealed. In Forensics, Monday to Friday on CBS Reality. Love can be intoxicating.
He was not only a lover, he was everything.
But this chilling true crime series shows that sometimes it can be just toxic.
He really just wanted to use her as bait to help him make money.
We knew he a drug dealer, he got money.
She was loyal to him. She was ride or die, by his side.
So, I went and got the gun. I'm going to jail.
Murder for My Man, Monday to Friday on CBS Reality.
It's been 6 hours since the body of a young woman was found in Plymouth. Police bring her to Derriford Hospital for the post-mortem.
It's the only time ever in my whole career that during a post-mortem we didn't know the identity of the victim. It's a horrible thing. Most policemen will tell you during their service that if they had a choice, they would rather not visit them. Biggest thing was the way that she'd been strangled. The material was tied into the hair. If you have someone who is a willing participant in a sexual act where strangulation is part of it, then they tend to lift their hair up to allow you to put the gag.
The pathologist also finds a vital clue.
During the course of his examination, he examined her hair, and in her hair, we found a necklace with 18 and an N.
A potential buyer of this empty council-owned building on Molesworth Road made the gruesome discovery just after 12:30 this afternoon. The police are asking anyone who may know anything to come forward.
In any major crime investigation, any murder investigation, the single most important inquiries are conducted through the media. Press reports are absolutely essential.
A shaken city responds to the request for help.
Nothing solid.
By early evening, police have several leads. John Rimmer is a member of the Plymouth investigation team.
We were just told that we were going to be the family liaison officer. So our duty really was to actually speak to anybody who may or could have been the family of the deceased.
I just caught the end of the news. Somebody was being brought out in a body bag. And my partner at the time said, "Don't be silly. Nicola doesn't live anywhere near there." I decided to ring the police. Seemed like not even 5 minutes, and there was a knock at the door.
Marina Parsons? Yes.
She gave the impression that she sort of like, it wasn't Nicola, and she felt a bit guilty about ringing us.
Marina reveals that her daughter Nicola had recently moved into her own flat.
And I just said, "I'm sorry, can you just, whoever knocks on Nicola's door, just tell them it's because I was worried." I could imagine her opening the door and saying, "What's going on?"
After a very short time, there was mention of a piece of jewellery. Yes, it was an 18 and an N. Because of that, it was then deemed that we should take them immediately to Derriford Hospital, where the mortuary is, and have the body identified.
It's almost midnight. The post-mortem is still in progress when Marina Parsons arrives at Derriford.
It's the only time ever that a post-mortem was stopped. But we'd seized all the forensic evidence from the outside of the body.
Obviously, during the trip up to the hospital, Marina did become very concerned and obviously very upset.
I couldn't go in. My partner went in with John.
Chris appeared to be fairly in control. We went in, just a room at the mortuary where they'll take the body to. And they cover the body, obviously, so really we're only seeing the face itself. As soon as Chris saw the face, I mean, that was it.
They were so long. So I knew. I knew, but I didn't want to know.
It was obvious that this was Nicola now. When Chris and I returned to the vehicle, Marina just broke down.
And that's when our lives changed.
Police now know their victim is 18-year-old Nicola Parsons. With the body identified, the post-mortem continues. It's confirmed that Parsons was raped. Semen is collected for analysis. The injuries to her chest are also closely examined.
There was the cuts to the breast, the left breast. That was an after-death post-mortem injury, because it hadn't bled.
It appears the marks weren't made to frighten, but for a darker reason. It's 24 hours since Nicola's body was found. Plymouth police are eager to make progress.
As soon as we identified the body, we were in a totally different situation. We were able to broaden the investigation considerably.
We were able to appeal for witnesses who may have known her, that may have seen her. Who was the last person that had seen her?
Detectives need to know more about Nicola Parsons' friends and enemies.
My relationship was very close with Nicola. She worked in a nursing home. She got herself a job as a care worker. She was just a very caring girl. She had just moved out and got her own place. Quite a small flat, but she was excited because it was her first bit of independence. Yeah, the last time that I saw Nicola, she'd already gone and sat for an interview for the RAF, and she said that
Generally speaking, it looked as if she was a very neat, caring person.
well, Nicola, in her flat, everything had its own place. She didn't like things out of place.
There were some things in the flat that did help us with the investigation, namely a diary. That helped us to actually find out and delve into the lifestyle of Nicola Parsons.
The diary reveals a very different side to Nicola and her way of life. Plymouth has a well-known club district. Bars crowd Union Street, making it a popular destination.
In Union Street in Plymouth, at night, basically we had a lot of public order offences, drunkenness, assaults, and the like.
Nicola's best friend tells police they frequently visited the area's many night spots.
Nicola used to enjoy going to the nightclubs, and she would often be there 3, 4, 5 nights a week. Nicola had spoken to some of her friends, and she'd indicated that she wanted to go down to the nightclub, and she probably would be going to Jester's that evening.
Her friend also describes what Nicola was wearing the night she was killed. A black skirt, red top, and black boots. Nothing like that was found at the crime scene. The information gives police a solid lead. Perhaps the killer was someone she knew, or someone she met at Jester's. A killer who is stalking the city's clubland.
It was essential for us to look at their CCTV system and actually extract as much information as possible.
And on the particular night, we know that there were over 650 people in the club.
While the videotapes are being scanned, John Rimmer pores over Nicola's diary.
We went through virtually every page and piece of those diaries. You could see from the diaries that Nicola was a very sociable young lady, enjoyed the company of young men. There was always a possibility that whosoever committed the murder may have been already in her diaries.
Many of her boyfriends have one thing in common. They're sailors. But if her murderer is one of them, police face a mammoth task.
We knew from the diaries that Nicola was very involved with some servicemen. She liked service people, and she mixed well with them.
At the time, there were some 30 vessels in port. My biggest fear in this case was that if the offender was a foreign seaman, never to return to the UK, it would be a long time before we were able to identify and eliminate them.
Normally an investigation in Plymouth area would involve probably about 5,000 people. Our database had over 20,000 people on it, and we had ships that sailed the next day, had gone to all over the world.
The detectives face a daunting challenge and chilling prospect. Nicola Parsons may have willingly had sex with an anonymous sailor who, after brutally murdering her, escaped the country. But footage from the CCTV cameras will soon give police what they so desperately need. It's been several days since the murder of Nicola Parsons. There's no description of her killer, no fingerprints. Dave Green follows the only solid lead, the shoe print found at the scene.
You can guarantee that probably 80-90% of all burglars wear these 10 types of shoes. But this time, when we turned up, we both had to look at each other and go, I haven't got a clue what that one is. We went into town, and we must have looked like a pair of weirdos, because we spent our time going into shoe shops, picking up shoes, turning them over, and looking at the pattern. But we found the shoes.
Endless hours of scanning closed-circuit tapes from the Plymouth Club district also pays off. Police may have found Nicola and the man who murdered her.
The information came to us that Nicola was seen in the nightclub, possibly on that night, arguing with the man in black. So it was essential that we narrow down, A, was it that particular night, or was it another night? Was it a man that she knew, or someone that she had just met?
We were identifying a number of people that knew Nicola.
Dozens of Union Street regulars are brought to the police station to watch the CCTV footage. But it's frustrating work.
And of course, where alcohol is involved, people do tend to forget, and their memory is perhaps not as good.
It became apparent that we were having great difficulty.
Questioning eyewitnesses proves pointless. The investigation stalls yet again. Then suddenly comes a major clue.
We found that there was a DNA profile on her and in her. It became quite clear that this was the offender's DNA.
It's a critical discovery, but the DNA doesn't match anyone on record. In 1996, a national database has only just been created, and as yet, there aren't many people on it. Detective John Essery takes an extraordinary step.
In this case, there was no description because we didn't know who the offender was. I made the policy decision that we could eliminate by DNA alone.
Anyone who is arrested, no matter what the crime, is forced to give a DNA sample.
And during the period from July until November, there were over 1,300 prisoners.
They're also given a questionnaire about the murder, and if their brand of boot matches one of those determined to have been at the crime scene, a print is taken. It's an avalanche of evidence. Processing it will take months.
The DNA at that stage was not as efficient as it is today. The DNA would take several days, and we were only able to eliminate 30 samples a week.
But police don't have to wait for results. 2 weeks into their search for Nicola Parsons' killer, there's a breakthrough. A local man who had already given a DNA sample approaches them.
Hello? I need to speak to somebody about this thing going on with that girl.
What girl is that?
I'm talking about the murder of that girl.
This man came into a police station in Plymouth and actually asked about his sample. And this man said, well, I committed the crime.
It's difficult to come in here and admit to a grisly, disgusting, beautiful murder, all right? Okay, you know what I'm talking about.
After focusing on thousands of sailors and watching hundreds of hours of videotape, police can't believe their luck.
What matters is that I killed her. And I mean...
They put a priority on checking the man's DNA, but they can't hold him for too long before they have to formally charge him.
After 36 hours, you've got to apply to the court for a warrant for further detention. But if we waited for the DNA profile, we would have gone public. The media would have had information that a man was in custody. That would have spread like wildfire through the city. That would have switched off all our potential witnesses to coming forward and giving us information. So I decided that he should be released. It was a chance that I was taking.
It's a tough choice. Essery may be letting a killer walk free. Authorities keep him under surveillance and wait. Then, a crushing blow. More than a week into the investigation, Nicola's detailed post-mortem report arrives.
Toxicology tests indicated that there was no alcohol whatsoever found in her bloodstream. The likelihood was that, knowing Nicola's background, she did like a drink.
Police realize they've been wasting precious time. Nicola Parsons was never at Jester's. Her killer isn't on the security camera footage. They've spent days chasing the case down a dead end.
On that particular evening, there was another girl dressed almost identically to Nicola. She was slightly larger build than Nicola, but she had virtually the same clothing on.
The man in black is also found, then cleared.
We did actually find a man in black, but there weren't any arguments.
Then, even more frustration. Police get the DNA test back on the man who confessed to the murder. It doesn't match.
What drives someone to admit the murder they haven't done? Sometimes it's attention-seeking, and sometimes for their own reasons, but that man was totally eliminated.
team is back at square one. Detectives don't know exactly where Nicola met her killer, and once again, they don't have a suspect.
It appeared to us that A, she'd been ambushed on the way to Jester's. B, that a knife had been involved.
Stop it! Stop it!
And C, that she'd been taken unwillingly to Molesworth Road.
The investigation continues to lose momentum. A number of suspect sailors have been tracked to Greece. But they're all cleared. Then, a new clue leads back to the city. When Nicola's clothes are found more than a mile from the crime scene. Her purse is discovered too, with money still inside.
The finding of the clothes and handbag in the skip gave us another crime scene, another focus of attention, another area for house-to-house inquiries.
Instead of a sailor who's left town, the murderer may actually live close by.
It would appear that the offender escaped down the railway bank, along the railway, dumping the clothes at Devonport railway station.
There are more than 200,000 people living in Plymouth. Authorities desperately need help.
After the investigation had been running for several weeks, we called together a full team of experts to sit down and discuss the case.
Julian Boone is one of those brought in. A renowned psychological profiler, he's worked on hundreds of cases. The television show Cracker is based on his work. He puts together a portrait of a disturbed killer.
The first thing that occurred to me was a psychological need being served by the perpetrator.
Come on!
And we've got the ties to the hands, all of which go beyond restraint. It's helplessness, powerlessness, lifelessness is being demonstrated.
Come on!
Whoever killed Nicola Parsons needed to totally dominate her.
There's no talk back. I am in complete control. I am calling the shots.
Boone also believes the killer was proud of his work.
The positioning of the body was in every way non-accidental. The victim had been posed and left in such a position that it would have been repugnant to any other person.
It's a disturbing analysis of a calculating psychopath. Someone who wanted to return to the scene of his crime.
I believe that his hope was to go back day after day. It hadn't been discovered. He would have done that so that he could go back and top up his fantasy and see what he would have regarded as his handiwork.
All the mums and dads in Plymouth would feel at risk because we were always concerned whether this might be an offender that would strike again.
we are racing against time to actually find the murderer.
Police have spent weeks chasing shadows. A killer is stalking Plymouth, and he may be hunting his next victim. Early September. It's now been 2 months since the murder of Nicola Parsons.
Months seem like years, and minutes seems like weeks. It's there every day anyway, just round the corner, hiding away, but it's there in your head.
I don't think anybody can imagine what it's like. Marina, obviously, was just devastated all the time. The information we would tell her,
Marina, paying attention.
I couldn't even tell you whether she took it all in. Her grief for the loss of her child seemed to override everything, you know, that we would tell her about it.
You think she must have called out for help, and I wasn't there for her to help her.
Spurred by Marina's grief, the hunt for Nicola's killer is intensified. To cover all scenarios, detectives expand the search outside Plymouth.
It's really important to look at any connections with other offences.
What they find is chilling.
French police guard the small hostel where Caroline Dickinson's body was found. Her roommates made the grim discovery. They woke up yesterday morning to find the 13-year-old pupil lying dead in her bed.
Another brutal rape and murder. Another unsolved crime. The slayings happen just days apart. A serial killer may be hunting young women. Police must act, and fast.
Plymouth has a very good ferry link across with France, so therefore it was possible for an offender to have committed one crime and then committed the other.
Did the murderer, looking for new victims, move his killing field to France?
So we were immediately in touch with the French authorities, gathering information from them, and we knew that they were in a similar situation to ourselves with a sample, a DNA sample that we could actually compare.
2 savage crimes may have been committed by the same person. The French sample is rushed to a UK lab. It could be the key to unlocking both cases. But when they're checked, the 2 samples don't match.
The offenders were different, so that case was eliminated totally from our investigation.
Another dead end. Once again, the investigation returns to Plymouth, with little to go on save Julian Boone's profile of the killer.
One of the characteristics of sex offenders is that they are chronically bored. And the only way that that boredom can be alleviated is to participate in the negative.
A psychopath obsessed with brutally dominating young women is stalking the Plymouth streets. But police are still hopeful of finding him.
We'd taken 3,240 samples of DNA, of which only 1,250 had been profiled. So we did feel that the offender might already be in our system.
been more than 3 months since the murder of Nicola Parsons. Police have spent hundreds of hours on the case. But a man who seemingly killed at random, who raped and murdered a young woman, is still free. Combing through the evidence yet again, they compile a number of lists. People with petty crimes in their past, people who have the right type of shoe, and those who live in the area. One name keeps coming up.
After a number of months, the investigation team became concerned over a man called Andrew McKinley. He started to appear in a number of issues in relation to this investigation.
McKinley has been arrested for 2 crimes since Nicola's murder and had been questioned about the case.
McKinley lived within a close proximity of Molesworth Road and also close proximity of Devonport Railway Station. And he had some boots which were similar to the footprints found at the scene.
McKinley is brought in for questioning, but he has an explanation why his boot prints were found at the crime scene. He'd been there to relieve himself. When pressed, McKinley continues to deny he has any connection to the homicide.
Somebody's made a mistake.
Throughout those interviews, he denied knowing Nicola Parsons, denied being anywhere near the nightclub area, etc.
Police are highly suspicious. On the surface, McKinley doesn't seem like a good fit for the murder of Nicola Parsons. The hospital worker is just 23 years old. He has a wife and a 5-month-old baby. But his normal background doesn't surprise Julian Boone.
The most useful thing I could offer them was, don't look for somebody who looks like an oddball. He is an oddball, but he won't look like one. He'll present normally.
Deeper scrutiny reveals troubling signs.
He'd come from a broken marriage, disrupted childhood, fostered and then adopted. There was a history of stealing, of ruining relationships because of the thefts, and not being trusted. As a result of all of those things, he became priority number 1. So his sample was fast-tracked.
"12 days after detectives request McKinley's DNA be tested, the results arrive.
At 11 o'clock that morning, a DNA hit came through from the forensic science laboratory. His DNA now matched the scene sample, the semen found at the scene of the crime.
It's been 5 months since Nicola Parsons was slain, but police are in for yet another surprise. McKinley has an alibi for the night she was murdered. For months, the brutal murder of Nicola Parsons has haunted Plymouth. Finally, police have a DNA match to the crime scene. They quickly arrest their prime suspect, Andrew McKinley. But when he's brought to the police station, officers are stunned.
There was another male at the address. There was an alibi for Andrew McKinley.
His housemate was brought into custody because he was providing him with an alibi for the night.
So officers needed to separate McKinley away from this other individual, and we needed to run through the movements of each of the people.
An airtight alibi could destroy the case. If they can't crack it, McKinley could walk free.
It was essential that we made sure that his alibi was sorted out very, very quickly.
There's another disturbing possibility. The tenant could have helped McKinley kill Nicola Parsons.
He might have been involved, or might have been on the periphery of this crime, or the covering up of this crime. We just know that an offender at the scene had left semen, but that's not to suggest that someone else was not involved.
Under pressure, the truth slowly emerges. McKinley and his tenant didn't even know each other 5 months ago. The supposed alibi is a lie.
So, with having separated the two individuals, interviewed the other person, officers were then able to eliminate him from this investigation.
McKinley is on his own. But even with a DNA match linking him to the crime, he admits nothing.
He kept very bland, a bland appearance, showed very little emotion.
Did you know Nicola Parsons? He answers no. Were you in Jesters? He answers no. Were you in Union Street? He answered no. Were you in Molesworth Road? He answers no.
A year and a half after the murder of Nicola Parsons, Andrew McKinley finally goes on trial. Without a confession, there's still a chance he'll go free.
Well, the trial, it was something that I felt I had to do for Nicola because it was the last thing I could do for her. My thoughts when I looked at him was, how could you be so cruel? So emotionless, not even a tear, not even an expression. And he sat there, he's no right to be even sat there.
McKinley denies all accusations, but to the court, there's little doubt. He is sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Nicola Parsons.
There is literally no doubt whatsoever that had Mr. Essery and his team not caught this offender, that he would have acted out again.
You never forget that there's a human being that you're dealing with, and that it was someone's daughter, someone's sister, and clearly those feelings are still there with the family all the time, and you have to respect that.
The police were absolutely excellent from beginning to end. I can't fault them at all. Everybody put their everything into it. It was just so important. You just remember, like, Nicola as Nicola, a loving, caring girl she was, loved her nan and granddad. I mean, she was such a cracking little girl. I can see her now outside my mum's old house, outside the kitchen window, with her arm around my dad.